Former royal chef Darren McGrady served the Queen, Princess Diana, Prince William, and Prince Harry. I'll cook Prince William and Harry's favorite food. Former royal chef Darren McGrady, 63, stated something no one expected, changing what we knew about Prince William and Prince Harry. He was silent for decades. He provided them meals, witnessed their childhood, and believed their link was indestructible. However, he's now acknowledging what many have long assumed. His remarks shocked, devastated, and made an immediate impact. Do not mistake this for another royal quarrel, because what Darren revealed goes beyond sibling rivalry. It's personal. The cook who observed everything behind royal doors. Darren McGrady didn't want royal access. Chefs were educated to make royal quality solids, venison, and keep their heads down. However, spending 15 years in the world's most watched household, feeding monarchs, comforting a bereaved princess, and serving banana flaky boys in their jammies makes you notice more than just the food. You notice what's not mentioned at dinner. McGrady started working at Buckingham Palace in 1982, fresh-faced and eager, and became Queen Elizabeth II's personal chef. His life transformed when he was sent to Kensington Palace to cook for Princess Diana and her two young sons. The real narrative begins there. McGrady watched a new kind of drama unfold behind closed doors, as the public was suffering from royal scandals and tabloid headlines. One of childhood, bewilderment, and brothers finding themselves in a perfect world. He witnessed the contrast. William thought more seriously. Harry was warm, impetuous, and untamable. They humanized the palace. Even after spilling half the custard, they'd sneak into the kitchen to ask for trickle tart or stir it. Diana didn't mind. She wanted kids. Actual youngsters, not future rulers or rebel spares. McGrady also remembers the silences, Diana's quiet glances at the boys when Charles was mentioned, and the stress when official obligations interrupted family dinners. William seemed to be internalizing and guarding. Harry showed his feelings, and Darren recognized early on that he was the weaker one, always needing reinforcement. Back then, their closeness was unquestionable. McGrady called them partners in crime in interviews years later, always with pride and longing. He saw them as two sides of one childhood. He remembered Diana letting them eat fast food over the nanny's objections. They celebrated like Christmas was coming twice. Even their arguments were brief because they were so close. Harry pouted, William lectured, and they watched cartoons again in minutes. Looking back, McGrady admits he may have missed discrepancies. William felt faded. He knew he was heir early on. Harry struggled to fit in. Darren remembered Harry's innocent inquiry, "Will I ever be king too?" over buttered toast for years. McGrady's insight was powerful because of his access and compassion. He wasn't just a worker, he witnessed a family trying and failing to be whole. He cooked birthday cakes, watched cartoons with children, and heard more unvarnished talks than most royal aides would acknowledge. Darren's voice softens when questioned about William and Harry's relationship decades later. He seldom guesses, but his tone has changed in recent years. An unwillingness to pretend everything is fine. Though he once saw two lads connected by nature, he now sees fissures that have become gorgeous. That sets the scenario for what follows. Darren's confession surprised royal watchers. It upended our understanding of the brothers and raised a terrible question. Were we wrong to think they'd stay together? Brothers in the kitchen, William and Harry's early relation. Ironically, Darren McGrady met William and Harry in the kitchen. The smaller, cozier Kensington Palace kitchen, not Buckingham Palace's. There, the smell of fresh scones and sizzling sauces mixed with the laughing of two young boys who didn't have to be royal. Diana's boys were sons. It was clear William and Harry were close. Darren called them accomplices in crime since they moved in sync, not simply invaded the pantry or left muddy footprints by the freezer. Mutual sentences were completed. Secret jokes were shared. William planned, discreetly asking whether he may have another serving of pudding. Without the nanny seeing, Harry, the brave one, was halfway through the pantry door before Darren could decide. Food was their refuge. Darren recalls their cheeks lighting up at banana flan or trickling tart. He surprised them with their favorite dinners after a hard day at school. The mood improved immediately. They were still boys despite the crown-shaped shadows above their heads. Darren said they might laugh about the Queen being overly serious one minute and fight over a spoon the next. The only person who allowed them be children without apology was Diana. She relaxed royal dinner etiquette. She wanted her sons to remember pancakes, not protocol. Diana regularly rolled her eyes and urged Darren to serve what they liked when the royal nanny insisted on steamed veggies and low-fat foods. "Let them be happy," she said. "Let them be normal." The lads followed suit. William, despite his quiet, serious character, seemed to relax with his mother. Harry, always energetic, softened around her. They best reflected her strong-willed, impetuous, and emotional nature. McGrady saw cracks beneath the jokes and desserts. William faced pressure. From assistants to press, everyone discussed his future, with interviews, expectations, and grooming regimens. Harry, meanwhile, floated in that unclear area for second-borns. Darren recalls Harry shouting, "Why don't they ever ask me stuff?" after overhearing staff planning William's next public appearance. William ignored it, but Darren remembered. Back then, love was real. Harry hurried to rescue William when he scraped his knee. To comfort Harry during nightmares, William sometimes climbed into his bed. Diana adored saying, "They may fight, but no one's allowed to pick on either of them except each other." McGrady believed this for years, even as the boys grew and their responsibilities varied. Not girlfriends, press, or institution. He saw them argue. Yes, he saw Harry roll his eyes when William corrected him. But the forgiveness always came quickly. At least it used to. In public, the image was pristine. Two brothers united by legacy. But in that warm, flour-dusted kitchen where they once stood side by side licking spoons, the real story was playing out. A story of love, yes, but also of imbalance. Of one brother quietly absorbing the world's expectations, and the other wondering if he'd ever get to shape his own. And now, as the silence between them grows louder with every royal event, Darren can't help but look back at those innocent kitchen days and wonder, when exactly did it start to unravel? What changed? A rift years in the making. The royal family has always thrived on image, poise, formality, distance. It's a dance passed down through generations. But for those who knew William and Harry during their youth, the tension that now defines their relationship didn't appear out of nowhere. According to Darren McGrady, it was a slow unraveling. Not an explosion, but a quiet series of moments no one thought to name until it was too late. The shift, McGrady recalls, started in their late teens. After Diana's death, the bond between the brothers seemed even tighter, at least in public. But behind palace walls, things were already starting to feel different. William became more measured, more calculated with his words. Harry, by contrast, began to feel the walls closing in. The same system that had protected them as children was now pushing them in opposite directions. Darren never claimed to be a psychologist, but he had a front-row seat to what he called emotional posture. William knew he had a role to play, one that required restraint. He followed schedules, spoke with polish, and leaned into duty. Harry, however, craved connection. He wanted purpose, but not the kind dictated by royal tradition. McGrady once said, William was becoming the future king. Harry was becoming the question mark. The press played its part. William was praised for his maturity, his looks, his calm demeanor. Harry, meanwhile, was the headline maker. Every mistake, every misstep became a tabloid feast. Darren noticed how it wore him down. The boy who once danced around the kitchen table was now grappling with his place in an institution that made him feel both visible and invisible. Still, the brothers tried. During public engagements, they stood shoulder to shoulder. At royal weddings and events, they smiled for the cameras. But McGrady, watching from afar, sensed something deeper. The laughter wasn't reaching their eyes anymore. The casual touches, the playful nudges, they were fading. "It reminded me too much of Charles and Diana," he said in one interview. "There was a lot unsaid, and it was getting harder to hide." And then came the real rupture. Some saw Prince Harry's marriage to Meghan Markle as a turning point, while Darren thinks the breakup began earlier. Though Meghan hastened it, the foundation was laid before. Many years of comparisons, unequal treatment, and roles neither selected. Harry the throwaway support act, William the future ruler. McGrady never criticized either brother, but his words mattered. He said royal gatherings were uncomfortable with both brothers. "It's like they're strangers now," remarked. "The chill isn't British." He also noted that both men now speak less about each other. Jabs, private jokes, and brotherly banter were common in former years. Recent interviews show controlled distancing, carefully chosen phrases, or silence. The news was frightening for McGrady, who thought they'd always be together. He took a fresh look at those kitchen recollections. Did he miss the warnings? Had the fissures always been concealed under pudding and politeness? Darren's sadness went beyond their separation. He noticed that the warmth he had hardened into deliberate detachment. He thought about it more and more, and one truth gnawed at him. He may have consistently misconstrued the story. In an unexpected confession, he would reveal his truth. Royal observers were shaken by the confession. Darren McGrady had light reflections for years. He recounted Diana's kitchen, banana pastries, boys' prank battles, and the gentle moments that humanized a stone-cast family in his interviews. But recently, something changed. The 63-year-old former royal chef gazed squarely into the camera in a modest internet video with a new weight. At 63, former royal chef confirms our suspicions about Prince William and Harry. He spoke steadily, but his words were stronger than before. "I was wrong," he acknowledged. "You must know this. I wanted to believe their bond could withstand anything. But I see now, this rift isn't going away. Not because of the press, not because of outsiders, but because they're both angry at each other, and maybe always have been deep down." The statement stopped royal fans in their tracks. Darren, the one who used to share harmless stories of palace life, was now confirming what many had only speculated, that the divide between Prince William and Prince Harry wasn't just a matter of tabloid gossip. It was personal. It was real, and it had been building for much longer than the public ever realized. He went on to say that his early impressions had been colored by hope. "I worked with Diana. I loved her. I watched those boys cling to each other after losing. I told myself they'd always have each other no matter what came next. But I was holding on to a fairy tale." In the video, McGrady didn't name names or assign blame, but he spoke with unmistakable emotion about what he'd seen in their adult life. Cold glances at events, no shared laughter, awkward nods in place of the old brotherly gestures. "I once saw Harry stand quietly outside the kitchen door, waiting for William so they could prank me together. That same Harry walked past William at the Jubilee like he was a stranger," he said. He recounted the last time he saw both men in the same room. Stiff shoulders, tight smiles. "They weren't just uncomfortable, they were done," he said. "I don't think they've said what they really want to say to each other in years, and I don't think either one knows how to start." McGrady admitted this public confession wasn't easy. He hesitated to speak out, worried it might seem like he was exploiting his royal ties. But in his words, "I've stayed quiet for decades, but I'm 63 now." In that household, the pattern has repeated too often. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that silence does more damage than truth. What struck viewers most was the emotional honesty. He didn't speak like a gossip or a commentator. He spoke like someone grieving the end of something once beautiful. His relationship with the royal family had always been respectful. But this was the first time he pulled back the curtain on the emotional weight of that distance. Royal commentators reacted with surprise. Fans flooded social media with mixed emotions. Some praised him for telling the truth. Others worried he'd crossed a line. But what no one could deny was the impact. Darren McGrady had confirmed what the headlines could only hint at, that William and Harry's falling out was deep and perhaps permanent. And it wasn't just the brothers who were upset. Sources close to the palace hinted that both William and Harry were furious, not just about the words, but about who said them. Someone who once saw them as two halves of a whole, someone who had once baked their birthday cakes, and watched them grow up. Someone who finally said out loud what many had been afraid to admit. The fallout that followed. Within hours of Darren McGrady's confession, the reaction was nothing short of explosive. For a man once known primarily as the royal chef, his words carried far more weight than anyone expected. Maybe it was because he wasn't a journalist or royal biographer. He was a man who'd lived in their home, served their meals, seen their worst and best moments without ever betraying their privacy until now. Social media lit up with clips from his video. Comment sections were flooded with divided reactions. Some applauded his honesty, claiming it confirmed what everyone had already suspected. Others accused him of stepping out of line, dragging private pain into the public spotlight. What complicated matters was the way he said it. Darren hadn't spilled secrets or revealed private conversations. Instead, he had reflected, regretted, and in doing so, he added something to the conversation that had been missing. A layer of sadness, a human ache that no headline could manufacture. Still, behind palace walls, the reaction was reportedly less forgiving. William, according to sources close to Kensington Palace, was deeply disappointed. He had respected McGrady as a fixture of his childhood, a familiar comforting presence from a time when the world still made sense. For William to hear Darren publicly question the bond between him and Harry wasn't just a breach. It felt like betrayal. As one aide put it, "It's not what he said, it's that he said it at all." Harry's camp was no more pleased. Though now far removed from royal circles, Harry has been increasingly protective of anything tied to his mother. Darren McGrady wasn't just an old family staff member. He was a link to Diana, a man Harry had once trusted to keep their memories intact. For him, hearing that trust dissolve in front of the entire world was deeply personal. As one anonymous friend of the Duke said, Harry's not angry at what Darren said. He's hurt that he chose to say it now when things are already so raw inside the public sphere. However, the response became more complicated. Some commentators noted that McGrady had done what the royal family never does. Speak emotionally. He had offered something more than palace protocol or rehearsed statement. He had given the public a glimpse of what this feud actually feels like to those who once lived in its orbit. Others speculated that McGrady's statement may have opened a door that can't be closed. With his admission, the illusion of a possible reconciliation had begun to unravel. Because if someone who had known them since childhood no longer believed they could make amends, then what hope did anyone else have? Royal experts debated whether this would escalate things further, or paradoxically create an opening for reflection. Sometimes it takes someone from the outside to name what's happening. One commentator said the brothers might be angry now, but what Darren did was hold up a mirror. And perhaps that's what made the fallout so emotionally charged. This wasn't just a former staffering grievance. This was someone who had believed in them, who had carried the memory of their bond like a private photograph tucked away in his heart, and who had finally admitted that photograph had started to fade. Whether Darren's confession will change anything between the brothers remains to be seen. But one thing is clear. The silence that once protected their story has now been broken, and from here there's no going back. The ghost of Diana's wish. Long before the world knew just how deep the rift between William and Harry had grown, there was a quiet promise made in the halls of Kensington Palace. It wasn't formal, it wasn't spoken like an oath, but Princess Diana had made her feelings clear. More than anything, she wanted her sons to stay close, to be each other's keeper. She didn't have many illusions about the crown or its politics, but she believed in the bond between her boys. Darren McGrady remembers that part more vividly than any recipe or event. He recalled Diana once saying, "I may not always be around, but as long as they have each other they'll be okay." She said it casually in the kitchen while stirring tea, but even then it felt like more than a comment. It felt like hope, maybe even a plea. Now, with both brothers living lives miles apart, geographically, emotionally, and ideologically, that hope feels like a memory slipping through the cracks. Darren's confession didn't just expose the current state of their relationship. It stirred something deep. It forced people to ask, if even Diana's wish couldn't hold them together, what could? For royal fans who grew up watching William and Harry shoulder grief as boys, the image of their united front at Diana's funeral was cemented in history. Two brothers walking side by side behind the coffin of their mother, bound by sorrow. It felt unbreakable, and maybe that's why the current silence between them hurts the public in ways even the monarchy doesn't quite grasp. They weren't just heirs, they were symbols of resilience. McGrady's regret was less about betrayal And more about belief, about realizing too late that what he thought would last forever had already started to unravel long ago. He hadn't meant to stir division, but he had to tell the truth. She'd want us to be honest, he said. In the end, the chef who once served the family their favorite meals may have served the world something far harder to digest. A glimpse of reality behind the royal illusion. Whether it leads to reconciliation or only deepens the silence, one thing is certain: Diana's ghost still lingers, and so does her wish. If even someone as close as Darren McGrady can no longer see a path back for William and Harry, then what will it take to heal this royal divide? Or is it already too late?